right now in Kenya, we are talking about the Singapore dream. Yeah, and that is what our leader has presented to us, that we are going to Singapore. Yeah. And allow me just to use that to explain this, because it will help us readily analyze the situation. Yeah. How did Singapore become Singapore? Where did it come from? Mm-hmm. We all know that Singapore was a third world country. Yeah, very sure. Like especially at the time when the great leader Lee Kuan Yew was coming into power. They had just broke out of Malaysia, and the country was devastated. It was at its knees. The economy was down. And even when he went to make his speech, he was emotional because he realized the weight that was coming, that was laying upon him. So what did he do? He faced it. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite fear. The African dream is a reality that must be actualized. Of course, you know, Singapore, we are talking about 1975. That is when we are talking about Lee Kuan Yew beginning to bring the transformation. And for us, we began in 1964.
We are approaching a significant mark in the journey of this podcast. If we have done something to you, if we have shared something that has been really instrumental to you, that has changed your life in one way or the other, or that has provided a lesson to you in one way or the other, or we have held conversations that you know resonate and will help someone who is undergoing something somewhere, kindly, we only request for one thing: hit that subscribe button, because it not only does great to me, but it does a lot to each and every person whose hands are involved in producing the content that you put out for you there. Approximately 72% of you have not yet subscribed to this channel, and my request is kindly hit the subscribe button. Bahati, let's be honest.
Yes.
There's a generation of Africans who are praying for miracles because the economy has given them that blow, or the economy has not given them any other choice on how to face life. Most of us are stuck in something called the waithood, whereby we are too old to be kids and we are too broke to be adults. Do you think the African dream is actually a nightmare for the youth, or we are just looking for an exit in the wrong places?
I think is an interesting way to look at the issue. The African dream is a reality that must be actualized, and where you have put it that we are too young or to do what is supposed to be done, but we are too old past that threshold. So that is the real challenge that is facing the young people, or an average African person, or an average African youth. But there is hope. There is hope, and there is a way out.
How do you find hope when everything, or how do you even stay hopeful when literally everything seems to work against you?
Basically, that is now the major challenge that, and something that needs to be answered. If we analyze the African situation, you realize that actually we are running out of options. And you think that one is a contradiction from the point that I stated earlier. We are running out of options from a literal point. If you just observe from the literal state, because you can see the things that are happening around Africa. You can look in Kenya right now. We can see the demonstrations that have been happening in Kenya. We look at what is happening even in other countries within Africa. You realize that we are running out of options, because sometimes you are hard pressed until you reach a point that you think that I just need to come out of this. But now I have mentioned earlier that there is a hope, and maybe if you give me an opportunity to go deep into that, I think it is a challenge to us to start and look deep into the matter that we have been presented with, and see how we can create. They normally say that if you're given a lemon, you create what? A lemonade out of it. We need to, I believe from my own experience, little experience, and from studying history and the way things are happening, that if we really analyze the situation that we have found ourselves in, it is possible for us to see a way out, and it has happened throughout history. Now, maybe just if I could rush through this, I could give an example of someone like right now in Kenya, we are talking about the Singapore dream. And that is what our leader has presented to us, that we are going to Singapore. And allow me just to use that to explain this, because it will help us readily analyze the situation. How did Singapore become Singapore? Where did it come from? We all know that Singapore was a third world country.
Very sure. Like us.
Especially at the time when the great leader Lee Kuan Yew was coming into power. They had just broke out of Malaysia, and the country was devastated. It was at its knees. The economy was down. And even when he went to make his speech, he was emotional because he realized the weight that was coming, that was laying upon him. So what did he do? He faced it. I believe that as African youths, we are being presented with an opportunity in history to confront something and get something out of it, or accept to be broken down by the system and the things that are fighting us at the moment, and suffer the consequences.
Let's go back on the Singapore story.
Yes.
At some point in history, Singapore came to benchmark in Kenya. They also took a loan from Kenya. I think this was the time when Sir Evelyn Baring was the Prime Minister of Kenya, if I'm not wrong, because I've forgotten history a little bit. I've seen a lot of people analyze the concept of us going to Singapore, or us taking Kenya to the state where Singapore is, and people are giving different perspective to the same conversation. Some people say there are things that Singapore did that we are not doing them. For instance, things to do with corruption, things to do with unemployment, things to do with opportunities and all that. And they're trying to analyze each and everything, breaking it down. I don't want to get political about it, but I just want to get your concept of, do you believe we can achieve the Singapore dream doing things the way we have been doing them for 60 years since we got independence?
Of course, if you do things the same way, they always say that you can't do things the same way and expect different results. Now, we can just be blunt about it. I could say that since independence, this is over 50 years. Till date, we must accept that there are things that are not working. And if we will continue to do it the same way, that means that is not going to work. Of course, you know, Singapore, we are talking about 1975. That is when we are talking about Lee Kuan Yew beginning to bring the transformation. And for us, we began in 1964. So if we have been doing for 1964 and it's not working, then it means something is wrong.
Let me take you back a little bit. Before the ministry and the influence, who was the boy Bahati who didn't know who he was going to be, and what was the biggest fear during this time of your growing up?
Interesting. Basically, I'm not very influential, but at least okay, I have the privilege to stand before people and lead them in matter spirituality. But maybe I grew up like every other young person in Kenya. I grew up in the rural areas. I didn't grow in the urban areas. And the greatest fear that I had is achieving those dreams. You know, as you're growing up, you are always looking up to becoming somebody, making somebody, bringing transformation in your life and something. You see, That is something that you have, but at the back of it, there is some fear. Will I make it?
Yeah. How do you handle the fear? You are trying to build.
Yes.
You are not certain of where you are going. You are not born or fed on a silver spoon, everything. It's like you are getting everything from scratch, bit by bit, bit by bit.
Yeah.
How do you handle the fear to transition to make sure that whatever I'm doing right now is making an impact to what I want to achieve in future?
Yeah, I think that is the best and something that must really be fixed if somebody is going to achieve anything. The definition, I really don't know who defined it, but they say that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite fear. So I am afraid, yes, but I am moving. So what makes you to be moving despite fear? You must have a vision, and the vision must be big enough to push you despite the fear that you have. So for instance, you have a vision, for example, we have been talking about the African dream, you're talking about Singapore. If that vision is big enough, is valuable enough, is something that we want badly enough, despite the fears that we have, we will keep moving and taking steps towards that. So it applies to personal life. There are fears that you have. Oh, am I good enough? Am I going to do this? But there is a vision that you have. You know that I am going somewhere. You will keep moving towards that vision. That is very important. But before that, moving towards that vision, something that must also be put into perspective is your identity.
Okay.
You must really, really know who you are. Because yes, I have a vision and fears are coming. If I realize that I am not good enough to be the one pursuing this vision, what happens? Everything collapses. Everything collapses. So one of the major topics that even we discuss with my colleagues and fellows and the people that I lead is the matter of identity. Identity is very important. So when I talk about identity, I'm talking about like what defines you. If I ask you, who are you? Like you'll find most people, they're being defined by their race, their tribe, their culture, their background, the things that are happening around the environment. So for instance, you as an individual, when you are even in some circles and maybe there is a discussion and maybe there is somebody who comes from maybe a white race and you are there as an African. So your identity is the white is superior. You see, you have already lost.
Okay.
Now, if you come from a family where maybe there have been issues, maybe they didn't make it. There is that identity that you have allowed maybe to speak over you. So when there is something, there is an opportunity to be seized. You're like, that one doesn't happen where I come from. In our family, it doesn't happen.
I'm not enough.
Yeah. So where do you get your identity from? Are you getting that? So we have a vision, yes, but who am I? Because challenges will come, and those challenges will either make you, reveal you, or break you. So if your identity is strong enough, you will know that despite this thing, I know who I am. And now, because I'm a Christian leader, there is one ideology that I've been sharing out. I've been, I think we were sharing last week, and I told the people, the Israelites were in Egypt for how many years? 400 and about 30 years. They are they are slaves. They are being enslaved. They are working. This is hard labor. They don't have a government. They have leadership. They don't own any property. They have nothing. But at the back of their minds, they know that we are the covenant people. And God comes and he talks to Moses. He tells them that my people, I have heard their cry. These are my people. And because I've heard their cry, I'm going to do something about them. So what does that mean? The affliction, the suffering did not take away their identity. So just because you've gone through suffering, you've gone through challenges, you've gone through things that have been challenging to you, traumatizing, financial hardship, it doesn't define you. You still carry your identity even through that. So maybe I'll just say identity is very important, and the vision, maybe we can start with those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time pouring into people, speaking to people opening up to you, whatever they are going through. When was the last time you felt truly empty, and what caused it?
Right. When you spend a life building others and living for others, living for others, one of the things is that you are always required and expected to be the stronger. You don't need to break down at any point. So you need to be strong. You need to appear strong every other time. I've had some times where I've experienced being down, maybe momentarily or for a period. But maybe this context, maybe let me just speak at the time when we had finished high school. You've done well, you have dreams. I wanted to pursue medicine, and we've done that first application that we used to do. And maybe somebody didn't advise me well, or something didn't go well, and you realize that you're not qualifying for the universities that you place, though whatever you did, the application is working, because like the person that I tied with, we had the same cluster points and whatever, got admitted for the course that I wanted, but now in a different campus. So that time you find that the options that are remaining are few, and the course that you have to take is different from the one that you really wanted. So I'm there. I'm like, I'm disappointed. I think maybe worries are happening, but along the way, I just found that all things work together for good.
From school to life, there is a behavior that has been cropping up, and it's there. I think right now it has already implanted itself in so many African youth, whereby we tend to show performance publicly on social media. I bought a car, put it out there. I have a very nice girlfriend, I put it out there. I got a job, I post that email I received and all that. Like, we are living in an era of validation, if I am to say that.
Yes.
And recently, actually, I saw people are competing on who can spend $1 million in 1 week. Is there something wrong that we are trying to run off for us to put these things out there in the public as young people?
I think I would say this is one of the major crises.
Is it an identity crisis?
It is connected to that.
Okay.
This is one of the major crises, especially in this part of the world.
How?
I was talking to some people and I said one of the major challenges that we have is that I think when we were colonized, I don't want to claim to be an expert in this, but this is my opinion now. Now, this is my personal opinion, that there is something that they did something to us.
Okay.
So what they created is that, you see, when they're getting all the raw materials from Africa, the coffee, whatever, everything, and it's being taken to their countries, you realize that all production, actual production, was not being done in Kenya. So after they have produced, now they bring the produce back to Kenya. So what did we know? What did we learn?
Nothing.
Consuming.
Only.
Consuming. Consumption. So we did not learn the production part. We learned the consumption part. We can consume. So it creates something that is very, you see, like in Africa, you realize that most of us, we are proud of big cars, the wonderful brands. When you're putting on Gucci or Louis Vuitton, you see those great brands, you are very proud of that because you're putting on something that is a brand around the globe. but we are not proud of producing anything.
Someone asked me a question, but why is it the world's most billionaires never wear branded clothes? They just do plain shirts.
That is the point. That is the point. That is the point. Because they are focused on production. The mindset is my pride is to produce. So when they sit together, they're like, you see that thing? I'm the one who produces. Are you seeing that brand? I'm the one. I'm the mind behind it. And the others who are leveraging on that opportunity, now when I talk about finances, their pride is seizing that opportunity, maybe having shares into that.
Okay.
You see, now I am a shareholder into that.
Company.
I'm a shareholder into Toyota, so I'm not just driving a Toyota. I'm a shareholder into Mercedes Benz. I'm not just driving the Mercedes Benz. So that is their pride. But for us, we have taken the point of our pride is driving the best Mercedes Benz.
How do we solve this, or how do we change now from the consumer mindset that was implanted in us way back to now the producer's mindset?
Now, this is where we are now.
Yeah.
And it's something that is ongoing. That is why we have now we have maybe some programs, especially creating awareness.
Yeah.
Creating awareness. You see, like the talks that we're doing right now, that is where now somebody is going to listen and understand that my pride should not just be that now I have this, I'm consuming this, I am using this, but our mindset need to shift and start priding ourselves in being producers, being productive, basically. So awareness is very important. We just need to educate ourselves, so that there can be a mind shift.
You spoke of after high school you wanting to do what you really liked to do,
Yeah.
and your colleague getting the opportunity to do that, and then now fast forward, you are out of school. There is a lot of waithood in Africa.
Yep.
After school, after graduation, someone may spend an entire year writing emails for a job, getting a job here, getting a job there. People pray until they give up, they quit. How do you maintain your faith in the face of uncertainty? Yeah.
Waithood. I think that is very key. That people leave school and you talked over here.
Yeah.
It is even years. Sometimes it takes even years. And we have a good number of people that even some they completely give up.
Yeah.
And, I think you must have seen online somebody is posting their degree and they're saying, I think this is the most nonsensical thing.
Someone literally banned your certificate.
You've seen somebody banning. Yeah, that is what is happening. Because people lose hope. People now give up. People now, they now start getting frustrated. But now, this is where we need to do something about it. So you have asked me how you maintain your faith.
Yeah.
So I think number one of the things is that we must do is that we must understand that how things work. Sometimes it doesn't work just in a straight way.
Okay.
You see, we must have a broader perspective on life. We must not have like a myopic or a shallow view of how life works.
Okay.
One of the things is that for what works for you may not work for me.
Okay.
And how it works for you may not be the same way it's going to work for me. So I think we must have just a positive attitude and understand life in a broader way. Another thing is that let's stop that issue of just maybe dying with the problem to ourselves. Sometimes when you share with other people, then you realize that I think even my problem is lighter than what the other people are facing.
We have chosen silence over being vulnerable.
Yes. And there's another problem. because you are quiet, you are dying with your problem, then you realize somebody committed suicide. Yeah. That is the trend. or you realize somebody entered into drugs, or you realize somebody entered into crime, even online crimes. You know, there are a lot of cyber crime,
Cyberbullying.
that is happening, especially from Africa. To be specifically, Kenya, Nigeria, you've had those things happening.
Yeah.
A lot of cybercrime. So why do people transition into that? Because we do not find the good ways of handling the challenges that we're facing. That is why I was mentioning having a wider perspective to life, sharing with other people. We must understand, I was telling somebody that we must not live with that mindset of we are measuring efforts and results. Okay, I worked hard, I got a first class, I did what, results should be this way. And in life, you'll be surprised that you'll find somebody who has done less of everything that you've done, and is having results that are 10 times what you have done in life. Appreciate the now. Appreciate the now. If you're growing, appreciate the growth that happens. Appreciate the lessons that we learn. Appreciate how life is taking you, and keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. So maybe if I just use maybe the example of maybe Steve Jobs. You've heard the story of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, they began Apple with his friend. Is it called Wozniak or somebody? Also Steve. Then they started their Apple company. Then it starts picking up. They start getting some good income. Then he is fired from his own company. He is fired from the company that he has created. He has created himself. So what happens is he is out of the company. He has to start all over again. So imagine you have started your own company. He's a co-founder. Now the two of us have started a company. Now the company has picked up. You have started making some revenue. I have to leave the company and stuff. So fired. So he goes and he starts afresh. You see, those are very sharp turns in life. But he did not choose to despair. Years later, he is invited back to the company to come when the company is facing some crisis moment, and he takes the company to another level. The iPhone, the iMac, the iPad, every he's the one who led. So one of the things is that do not analyze life like a straight line. I've worked, I've done what I've applied, a job I failed today, so I'm a failure. No, it doesn't work that way. There are many angles to life. Keep hope alive, be open-minded, have a broader perspective to look at life, share with other people, and see what is happening. At least you're going to find your way.
The story of Steve Jobs relates to Twitter. I don't know if people know how Twitter came to be Twitter. You know how Twitter became to be Twitter?
I think these are the things that many people need to be at least reading and to understand how these things happen.
Because I was reading, I think the 48 Laws of Power, if I'm not wrong. So Twitter, it's not the 48 Laws of Power, it's another book, I've forgotten the title. So Twitter began as an iPodcast. It was to be a podcast site for people. Then it failed. So the founders had to sit down, recreate, and then they later came up with what we call Twitter. And since they had the mindset of podcasts, Twitter had to be ranked as a place for the intellectuals. So that's why you see Twitter is behaving the same way it behaves. And when we speak of failures, fears, and all that, I'd like us to go back a little bit to our roots. I was having a conversation with someone online. We'll be doing an episode with her, God willing. She's an indigenous queen, like she's advocating for our roots, us going back to the ways we were back then. As the traditional church failed to address the Gen Z problem, or are the Gen Zs looking for answers in the wrong place? Because I was in an interaction with fellow young people, someone said, Derek, the old system has failed to address whatever we are going through. That's why we are trying to get answers from something new. And when I sit down with someone from the old, the olden days, that's the generation before us.
Yep.
He tells me, Derek, the thing is this, you people have abandoned the paths that were used, the books that were written, the analogies that our forefathers created for success for us. You people abandoned them. You embraced something that was from the Western side of success. It works in the US, but it might not work in Kenya.
All right. So I think that is an interweaving of two parts.
Yeah.
Maybe you've asked about the church.
Yeah.
So maybe let me just pick the part of the church first. Then I'll talk about the generations. Now, when you talk about the church, in my opinion,
Yeah.
I might not, because now I'm a leader in the faith circle. I may not just now say, okay, the young people, I'm a young person, and I know, I might say maybe I have a better opportunity to understand what's happening by God's grace. In my opinion, I would say there are two, I would say, if you would ask me, is the church failing to address the problems of the young people? I would say yes and no. There are two angles to understand whatever is happening.
Okay.
So let me bring it this way. The young people are looking for answers, and you'll find that in what is happening in the church is that sometimes young people do not find the topics that are relating to the issues that are affecting them. It has been there, and maybe this I would say maybe it comes down to specific churches, because not all churches are the same. You would understand that there is a lot of differences in how churches address issues and how things happen.
Yeah.
All churches are not the same. But there have been that problem where you go to church and we addressing the issues of salvation, our relationship with God, which are very important issues.
Yeah.
And the young people were looking for like current issues. We are talking about our relationships, we talk about the economic pressure, the finances, the things that are happening. So you find that there was such disconnect in that area. The other big problem is about communication gap, trend gaps, because you understand most of the Christian leaders are the older generation.
And that's what is being now raised by people.
Yes, so I'm coming there. So most of the church leaders are the older generation.
Yeah.
And we are there, we are young people. So what happens? It means the language that they are speaking is not our language. The things that they associate with are not the things that we associate with. Yeah. Now, you know, as Gen Z, whatever happens is that we are exposed. We have a lot of knowledge. We are having a lot of influences that are coming from outside, and we have the people that we want to be on the move. We want to be on the trend. That is the problem of the church. So the problem basically may not be that the church is not addressing the issues, but is not speaking the language that aligns that we understand. So I might be addressing your issue, but I'm not speaking your language. So you get what is happening.
Yeah.
So now to the younger generation, I think what the younger generation needs to understand is that, you know, what is happening in church right now, I might say, is that I had said that they are not addressing social issues. Maybe it's just spiritual. Right now, most churches, even in the circle that I'm leading as a youth ministry, the church I attend, what we are doing is that we are bringing practical life issues into church.
Okay.
Right now, if I may just mention, there is a man of God, is called Bishop Fred Akama. He's doing what we call Young Entrepreneurs Business Summit, and they are working with it's called Project Liam. They are moving from campus to campus. They happen to be at KC University. You know, that is I came from there, so I know they have been there, and they are raising young people into entrepreneurship. I did host a conference last year. It was called Hadash Conference.
Yeah.
And one of the issues that we were handling there, we are handling mental health. We are handling issues with identity and purpose. You see, we are handling things that address us. So I think if we say that maybe it's not addressing the issues, maybe it has been that way. But right now, I can say these social issues are being addressed in church. Now, when you talk about languages, that you can see the church leadership is embracing young people. You're bringing even young people into leadership.
Yeah.
So me, even as a young person, I'm being entrusted to teach. I'm being mentored, and that is how we are being brought on board. So I can speak to young people in their language. I'm just saying what the older people are saying.
Yeah.
But I'm saying in the language that the younger people understand.
Okay.
Yes.
You've spoken of mental health.
Yes.
And I think it's a very crucial thing.
Yes.
Last edition we're doing on mental health, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, we had this year I'm running a series on men's mental health specifically,
Okay.
because it's also something that has at some point affected me. So last week we had a conversation with Jackson on mental health.
Okay.
And when it comes to the topic around mental health, it's usually dismissed as either Western, because there are people believe mental health is a problem from the Western culture, and to other people they see this as a spiritual issue. And I usually wonder, at some point, how do you bridge the gap between clinical depression and spiritual warfare? Because some people tend to believe that the crisis of mental health is a spiritual warfare. Okay, whoever told me the part of the spiritual warfare believes in the traditional modes of spirituality, if I can say, for a lack of a better way to explain it.
Okay.
And then the other person I was having a conversation with, who is a psychiatrist, was telling me, Derek, mental health to me has two ways, and one of the ways it's a Western disease.
Okay. All right. So let me say this real quick.
Yeah.
Mental health is in the Bible, and it's real. So when I talk about, I'm gonna tell you.
I'm curious.
When you talk about spirituality and you talk about mental health, they are not separate things. It is one. It is part of the package. You know the prophet Elijah, for instance. You know the prophet Elijah.
Yeah.
After calling down fire from heaven, and the fire has come and everything has happened. He was threatened by Jezebel.
Yeah.
And they told, I'm going to cut off, to chop off your head.
Yeah.
Today. What happened?
He ran away.
He became anxious. He became depressed. He ran away. It came to a point that if in chapter 19 of the book of First Kings, he goes under a tree and he says, God, take me away. That in if we use now clinical terms or our language, we would say he became suicidal. That is what I'm just saying. He became suicidal. It is in the Bible. Yeah. That is Elijah, one of the greatest prophets that we talk about. He became suicidal. If you read the Psalms, every time David is saying, Lord, how long? My enemies encompass me.
Yeah.
He was expressing his emotions right there to God and his frustrations. David was frustrated many times, and he expresses it in the scriptures. Jesus says, I am sorrowful to the point of death, when he was about to face the cross. So mental health is not separate from spirituality. It is part of the package. It happens in there.
Okay.
That is why when Jesus talks about his mission, he says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to heal the brokenhearted. What is brokenhearted? Brokenhearted. You know, those are the things that we're talking. We are talking about binding the brokenhearted. We're talking about heartbreaks. Those are the things that are bringing depression. Those are the things that are bringing anxiety to the people. So, if you would ask me, if it is a spiritual issue or if it is a medical issue, basically, I am a spiritual person, and I believe science complements spirituality. It does not contradict.
Okay. As we wrap up this,
yes.
When you look at the next 10 years of Africa,
yes,
are you genuinely optimistic, or are you worried?
All right. To me, if I to be honest, I'll say it comes with both sides. But maybe I'll give a wrap up and close about. There's some pessimism that comes about when you talk about the future of our nation. For example, we look at the governance. You look at the governance and you are genuinely worried if we are going to become anything.
Okay.
You know why? Let me say, we look at history. beginning from independence. If we took, when we look at maybe the issue of corruption, we realize this is an issue that is age long.
Yeah.
Golden bucks started during the times of way back.
Yeah.
We come from there, come to Anglolism. Way back, we come into the next era. We are finding the NYS scandal. We found the Arrow and Kimwere dams. You see, those things is like the. So, if we are to use those trends to predict the future, you realize we'll be asking ourselves what gives us the hope that there is going to be a shift. So if you look at corruption, it is age long. Look poor governance, it is age long. You see those issues, they are age long. Poverty has been there. The greatest problems that the founder of the nation in Kenya identified when he came into power, we have not been successful to eliminate even one. Ignorance, things to do with the health. You see, diseases, those are the things that he addressed, the founder of the nation. Till today, we are still struggling with how many years later? You see, so if you try to look at those things of our governance and the economy is never getting better. Inflation continues to rise. There's some pessimism that comes in. But that is from the surface view. If you try to analyze deeper, you realize that there is some hope. Where does hope come from? We look at the spirit of the young people in Kenya, in Africa, and around the world. You realize that there is like a shift, there is a turn in how things are happening. Right now, when you talk about maybe governance, you realize that young people are awake. They are participating.
They know what is happening.
They know what is happening. It's not like the former years where, you'll not know even what is happening and you're told, and especially it has come even with social media. So everybody is informed. Everybody is informed, everybody is awake, everybody is aware, and they are willing to participate. You can see when we had Gen Z demonstration, we realized that everybody was coming out. So you realize this is a different spirit. Now that is governance. When you talk about economics, you realize that a lot of entrepreneurship spirit is coming up. We may not say that now it has just come out maybe during this Gen Z, but just in this recent years, you realize that there are young people that are taking the forefront. I've just been reading this morning about one of the companies in Kisii. There is this brilliant man called Lennox Chieng. Ecobana. You know it?
Yeah, he makes pads from banana
fibers.
And he says they are reusable.
They are usable. It is working. It is happening. So you look at those things, you realize you find Lennox Ochieng here. You come here, you find people who have just decided maybe to do content creation. And somebody is just paving his own way. They're just paving their own way. They're being consistent, they're being resilient, and they're creating their own opportunities.
Yeah, I think I'll give credit to someone like Obina. He has employed so many people.
You see, those are the things we are talking about. So you look at this spirit, you realize that we have young people that are forging their own path. They are entrepreneurial. They are forging their own path, and they are making it happen. So I look at such a spirit. We look at you here. We just created a platform where we can come here and discuss things, and people are being enlightened. So you realize that this is not something that that has been there all along. There is a new spirit. There is a new fire that is burning within the young generation. Yeah. So when you try to balance those things on the scale and the opportunities that we're having, especially with the coming of technology, I just discovered that Kenya, for example, is being termed as the Silicon Savannah. Silicon Savannah. And that is a very big term when you talk about the Silicon Valley in the US. You talk about a place where all technological innovations have been made, have been birthed. So the Silicon Savannah is Kenya. We are talking about a lot of technology coming into shape. So when you put together the spirit of entrepreneurship, you're talking about being active, being aware, refusing to give up. You're talking about young people being in the forefront of even activism. You've seen people coming out, and the young people, they are not afraid. They are talking about issues. We realize that there is hope for Kenya. and there is hope for Africa.
As we talk of hope,
Yes.
tell us about Gen Christ.
Generation Christ, yes. So this Generation Christ is an idea that was birthed from the fellowship that I lead. I lead a fellowship called Ablaze Revival Fellowship International. It is a revival movement that is focused on bringing spiritual enlightenment and ignition. We believe that the Lord has given us the mandate to bring spiritual illumination and to bring revival. So we came up with this idea of Generation Christ. Of course, right now people are aware we're having Gen Z, which is a movement of people who are vibrant, people who have been identified for both good things and bad things. But now we are saying that we are the generation of Christ. So it doesn't matter whether you are a Generation Christ or which generation, there is a higher identity. So basically, Generation Christ is an identity. It's an identity. We identify ourselves as the generation of Christ. And we have a tagline behind here. It's very beautiful. We're going to be showing you Psalm 24 verse 6, which says, we are the generation that seeks the Lord. So I think that is basically the Generation of Christ.
Wow, I really feel great when we have such conversations, because they open up a lot, and a lot is happening in Kenya. But that marks the end of our today's conversation, and I'll catch you on the next episode.